From the BBC World Service, in association with ABC and All India Radio, this is Stumped.
Hello and welcome to Stumped, your intercontinental hit of news, features and debate from the quirky world of cricket. I'm Alison Mitchell in the Northamptonshire village of Wollaston, and because it's springtime, there are lambs in the field. It's Easter week, and so the supermarket shelves are emptying of chocolate eggs. We'll certainly do an Easter egg hunt for the children in the family. And speaking of families, the England cricket family is bidding a fond, happy retirement to one of its stalwarts. Anya Shrubsole, England fast bowler, has announced her international retirement, famously helping England to win the World Cup in 2017 with her 6 wickets. Congratulations to Anya Shrubsole on what has been a stellar and certainly a long and fruitful career.
Hi, I'm Matt Clinch from Melbourne, Australia, filling in for the big chair of Jim Maxwell. There was no surprise when Andrew McDonald was named as Australia's 8th men's cricket head coach. He's 4.5 hours away from the MCG, grew up in Wodonga. He brings the calmness and consistency that the Australian team will hope steer them through a challenging 12 months.
Matt, wonderful to have your company here on Stumped. I'm Charu Sharma for All India Radio. And after gallivanting for many weeks around the country, I'm glad to be back home in Bangalore, where the heat sometimes is taken care of by our rather famous April showers. But of course, in India, it's all about the IPL juggernaut, which rolls on.
Well, we have a very special guest with us this week. She is the game's great sensation of the moment. She rewrote the record books in the ICC Women's World Cup final just a couple of weekends ago, producing one of the great ODI innings of all time to beat England and lift the trophy. She not only won Player of the Match, but Player of the Tournament for scoring the most runs ever in an ODI World Cup with 509. And she now sits atop of the ICC Women's ODI player rankings. It is Australia wicketkeeper bat Alyssa Healy. Alyssa, welcome to Stumped. Where do we find you at the moment? Back home in Sydney?
Yeah, thanks for having me. And yeah, I'm back home in Sydney, so enjoying some sort of normal life, which has been unheard of for the last 2 years. So it's been nice.
I was going to say, what does normal look like right now for you?
Chores. I was outside gurneying the outdoor area with all the rain that we've had in Sydney, and that's about normal. And going to the pub, I think, for the first time in about 2 years without a mask, which is quite bizarre. But yeah, just the normal things that people, I think, probably take for granted every day.
Yeah, I think we'll come back to that later in the chat as well, just that move from professional cricket life back to home life. But listening back to some of those highlights then, I mean, what has the last sort of couple of weeks been like for you? Because you've played World Cup winning innings before, think of the MCG in 2020, but what has this innings done?
I'm not sure. It hasn't really changed me or my life too much, which is probably a good thing. I suppose that's what it's supposed to be. It is my job after all, and I guess I can just tick the box and say that I did a good job. But I guess what the World Cup did as a whole, from a holistic point of view, I mean, I spent an extra 5 or 6 days in New Zealand after the World Cup. We went down to Queenstown and had a little mini break before coming back to reality here. And I think so many people wanted to stop and talk about it, and they'd watched the World Cup, they'd watched the final series. And I thought that was amazing. I'd never experienced that in New Zealand before. To see them really get behind the Women's World Cup was something really special. And we've obviously saw it here in Australia in 2020 with our T20 World Cup, but just what these World Cups are doing for women's cricket in these different countries is so amazing. So that was kind of probably the only difference that I've noticed.
Yeah, but your innings was absolutely stunning. Did you feel good from the get-go? Was it just one of those where everything clicked?
Yeah, this is going to sound a little bit silly, but it never felt special at any point, which probably is a good thing. It meant that it never really clicked in my mind what was happening. But I was a little bit worried about going out there facing the first 10. I mean, I thought they'd come out firing. They needed to get sort of 3 wickets in the first 10, and I was going to be one of them. So I was a little bit worried about heading out there facing the new ball, knowing their attack in Brunt and Shrubsole. But I guess once we sort of got through that little tricky period, then it was sort of put the foot down and consolidate. And from there, it just seemed to keep going. I'm pretty sure from about 110, I was trying to get myself out and I couldn't. So it was just one of those days where everything seemed to come off. So I was pretty lucky in the end.
I was going to say, you almost were one of those wickets. I mean, England fans will always ask, what if the catch had been held on 41? But, when something like that happens, does it almost sort of make you double down more, with determination in the innings?
I think so, yeah. I probably have only really learnt in the last few years how to build an innings properly. I mean, all I've really played is a lot of T20 cricket and sort of batted down the order a lot in one-day cricket. So the ability to build an innings is really foreign to me, which sounds probably bizarre being an opening batter. But at that moment in time, I probably just tried something I probably shouldn't have. I think in that moment, it was probably just a little bit too full to try that pull shot. So from then on, it was knuckle down and concentrate and make sure that we get through this little period. Yeah, it was a little moment of me to go, okay, switch on, let's do it properly, because I think sometimes I can get a little flippant, in the middle of my innings where I can sort of give chances away willy-nilly.
At the very start of your career, you would have been referred to as Ian Healy's niece. Does he now get referred to as Alyssa Healy's uncle?
Surely.
I still get Mitchell Starc's wife a bit, so that's all right. I've done that.
He's Alyssa Healy's husband.
I did that to myself, so that's on me. But yeah, I guess it's flipped, quite dramatically. And I got a really nice message from Uncle Ian after the final. I had a few expletives in it about how much they loved it and how much they watched it. So I guess to see that side of it too, and how much he's loving the women's game in particular, has been a really nice shift. So look, I'll take that flip.
Alyssa, hi, this is Charu from India, Bangalore, in fact. Listen, you're the biggest star in your family, all right? Let's get that straight. Fantastic. So in this large variety of shots that you play, is it possible to identify, say, the toughest shot that if you pull it off, you say, wow, that's really tough, and I pulled it off?
Oh, I don't know. I'm not sure.
Are those ramps pretty satisfying that we saw in the final?
Yeah.
After everything you were saying about the work you put on that leg side game.
Yeah, they are pretty satisfying, and they're not something really comfortable for me to play. So yes, I'd say those ramps. But I mean, sometimes I get a little bit amazed at how I can hit the ball over cover. I don't know where it came from. I played a lot of hockey in my life, so that natural bat swing. Play a lot of golf too, so I feel like that bat swing has come from somewhere. But I love the ability to hit over the offside. I think it's just such a natural cricket shot, and anytime you hit a six over mid-off or cover, it's pretty special.
Alyssa, there's very little doubt that Australia are far ahead of every other nation in women's cricket. Do you feel that gap can actually narrow, or with the kind of cricket Australia are playing, it's just going to increase and Australia can get better than they already are?
Yeah, I think definitely the gap can close. It's taken a lot of hard work for us to get where we are and to play as good a cricket as what we are. And we're always looking to improve. We seem to be searching for this perfect game that we can never quite achieve, even though I feel like we do quite regularly. But I think we can get even better than what we are. But I definitely think that the gap can close. I think, teams are playing some really, really good cricket and are sort of, I think, playing a lot better cricket than potentially what they're afforded, if that makes sense. I mean, you look at someone like South Africa who had an unbelievable World Cup, who played some really good cricket, beat a lot of really good sides, and I don't necessarily think they're as well supported as what we are. So the fact that they're able to do that is something really special. And I just think with proper investment and looking at our pathway system in particular and how we're able to produce some really great cricketers who are ready to go on the international level, I think, can see the game move forward for a lot of other nations and see it really competitive. And I think this World Cup was the closest one I've ever been a part of. So I think that the gap isn't as far as what everybody seems to suggest.
And that after winning just about every match in the World Cup, you think it was close?
I mean, we didn't want to make it too tight, so we played some good cricket. But I've never really watched or been really heavily invested in a World Cup outside of our games. I sort of just play it from our point of view, but I watched almost every game of that World Cup and absolutely loved it. And I love, the passion, the enthusiasm that all the other teams played with. And I just thought it was an amazing spectacle. And I just so hope that other organisations out there are seeing what their women's team are doing and saying, what, we want to invest in this and keep growing our sport in our country, because it really works.
Well, you make a good point, and I hope other boards are listening. It is about the IPL. I mean, I know you've got the WBBL, but the IPL for the men, at least, is the big daddy now. Maybe the women's IPL in India could be, the big mommy. I don't know, the big one for women. Do you think it's going to, is it, I mean, within the women's cricket circles, do you think we're close now to a women's IPL?
Yeah, look, I don't know the ins and outs of it. From what I've read, it seems to be on the cards for next year, but Well, I think it's naturally, the next step. I mean, India, especially in the women's game, is such an untapped market. I mean, you look at that Indian side at the moment, and I'd be terrified to think how good they're going to be in 10 years' time if, they get the opportunity to experience a lot of cricket in different places, and that includes in their domestic setup. Having other international players come in and play in a women's IPL is only going to strengthen the Indian game. So thankfully, I'll be retired by then, and they can come in and win everything they want, and I won't mind so much. But yeah, I think it's just a really exciting thing, and it's not about the money. It's never anything to do with that. It's simply the opportunity for young girls to get a taste of technically international cricket. I mean, you come to the WBBL and you're playing against, some of the best international players in the world. And what that's done for our domestic players is amazing. And I see the same opportunity in a women's IPL situation that, these young Indian superstars get the opportunity to play alongside some of the best players in the world and learn from them, learn how to win, learn how to play the game. And it's only going to do wonders for Indian cricket. So hopefully that's the next step. I mean, there's lots of talk of lots of little leagues popping up around the world, which is an amazing opportunity for a lot of us to hopefully get the opportunity to go and play. But the Indian one would be really cool to be a part of.
You mentioned how, and we all know how well funded and well looked after Australian women's cricket is, but it surely wasn't always the case. And in your fairly long career now, what challenges have you overcome? For instance, I believe in school, you were picked for the first team and about the only girl in the boys' team. They weren't too happy about it. So have things changed for women's cricket in Australia, particularly and around the world?
Yeah, they definitely have. And I think people are always going to want to talk about the money and the differences there, but that's not how I look at the game. It's about the opportunity for young girls to be able to play elite sport in this country, and in particular elite cricket. And I think the opportunities are there now. There's a pathway for young girls to come through and have a career in the game of cricket and make a living out of it, which is awesome. But I guess to have a life outside of that as well, I think is where, the biggest growth has been in this country. I mean, you look at the pregnancy policy that came into play a couple of years ago, which, allows young women or women involved in the game to go and have kids and come back and play the game of cricket, which had never been supported before. And I think there's steps like that external to just throwing cash at the problem that are making it a really viable choice for young girls to play the game in our country. And I think that's really special. And there's always areas that we can improve. But in saying that, I think the steps that, Cricket Australia and in particular our Players Association have really pushed for has meant that we're sort of building the game from the bottom up. And I think that's exactly the way that you want to do it.
Talking of home life balance then, Alyssa, now that you're home for a period, just give us a bit of a paint the picture about what it looks like. You've got like dogs, golf, Mitch.
I love that you've put that in the natural order, dogs, golf, Mitch. You've nailed that on the head.
I hope he's not listening.
He can definitely hear me, and that's fine. It's actually our wedding anniversary tomorrow, so I might be.
Congratulations!
Congratulations.
For me at home, it's switching off from cricket, especially this next sort of 6 weeks. We don't have any cricket for a little bit of time now, so being able to switch off is really important. And you've just hit the nail on the head. There's a lot of golf that's been played. There's a lot of dog walking, giving them attention, and there's a lot of stuff to do around the house, which we're on tour for a lot of the year, so some of that stuff gets left to when we're at home. So it's a very normal life, which I think, like I said earlier, I think people take for granted sometimes, but it's something that we crave when we're on tour for most of the year. So you won't see us doing anything too exciting.
I'm going to move on to the 100 in England. You're playing for Northern Superchargers, and you've got a young Indian with you, Jemima Rodrigues, and of course you also got Laura Fulfart for company. How well do you know young Jemima? Because she's quite a live wire in the Indian team. Of course, you were opponents in the BBL as well, WBBL. Do you know her well enough?
Yeah, I got the opportunity to play with her for in the last round of the KSL for Yorkshire just before it turned into the 100. So I've played with her before and really enjoyed that opportunity. She's an unbelievable talent. I'll say it. I was very surprised to not see her in that World Cup squad, the Indian squad. I think. Yeah, I think she's an unbelievable talent that, just hasn't found her way in a regular spot in that team. Mind you, there's so many of them in that Indian squad that could be regular starters. But yeah, she's an unbelievable talent, and I witnessed her make an incredible 100, this tiny little ground just outside York, playing the last game against the Vipers, and that was something incredibly special. So I'm looking forward to reuniting with her and hopefully making a couple of runs together.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you turned 32 last month. You've obviously won the T20 World Cup in Australia and now the 50 over World Cup in New Zealand, the Ashes most recently. What are the cricket ambition that burns still remaining inside you, and how much does that become a wrestle between the other things you'd like to do once your career finishes?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I probably found myself asking myself that question quite a bit more regularly of late. But for me, it's this overwhelming enjoyment of cricket as a whole at the minute, and I feel like as an Australian team, as a female athlete in this country, we're a part of something really special, and it's growing sport in our country, growing sport around the world, and making it accessible for lots of young girls out there. So for me, that's what I'm enjoying the most about cricket. Obviously, I love the game. I always have. I'm incredibly competitive, and I just want to go out there and compete and play the game. But it's this sense of achieving something so much bigger than just going out there and winning trophies and medals and stuff that's keeping me going, which is really funny. It's something that I'd never really put much thought into, especially early on in my career. You'd ask me and I just want to win every World Cup and be a part of everything. But there's still a lot of things I want to be able to, tick off. And I think in the very near future, the Common Games is something that's really exciting for us as cricketers to get an opportunity to go and do that and experience that. So that one in particular, I'm incredibly excited for. But I'm excited to see where this team can get to as well. And whilst that's not an exact goal for you, I guess it's a marker for me in my head to see, okay, well, how good can this team get, and can I be a part of that, and can I continue to contribute to this team's success?
Well, that's all we've got time for on Stumped this week on All India Radio. So a huge thanks once again to our special guest, Alyssa Healy, and thanks too to Charu Sharma and to Matt Clinch. Don't forget, if you're listening or watching, you can follow us throughout the week on Twitter. We're at BBCWS Sport. Use the hashtag BBC Stumped. And you can watch us on YouTube as well. Go to the BBC World Services YouTube channel. That's it for now. See you next week. Bye-bye.
Stumped is a BBC sport production for the BBC World Service in association with the Australian Broadcasting Corporation and All India Radio.